I'm gonna stop everything. Hang on. Hang on a second. I had all day today, tomorrow. I will be out there as well. We'll be hearing from John Harbaugh here at WNST, as well as Joe Flacco, Steve Smith, and others. Meanwhile, the Orioles are at Fenway Park in Boston, getting it going with the Boston Red Sox. Nothing quite like a first-place June battle between the Orioles and the Red Sox. Haven't had a lot of those, and this guy has been covering the Red Sox about as long as I've been watching the Orioles. Since 1987, he's been the Red Sox beat guy at the Worcester Telegram. You can follow his journey out on the web at telegram.com, as well as on his Twitter at BillBlueTG. We welcome Bill Blue on from New England. It is lovely this time of the year, Bill, and even more lovely when you get a pitcher's duel at Fenway Park. Who knew on Tuesday night, right?
It's unusual. The Red Sox have been playing the longest games in the major leagues, particularly at Fenway Park. They've been scoring 8, 10, 12 runs a game. And this one, even though Price is a slow worker, this one, the Tuesday night game went along very well. And it was, as expected, sometimes these pitchers' duels wind up being, 7 to 6 games, and they don't pan out. But this was a terrific pitchers' duel, and the Orioles won it. Now, this is 2 times in a row Price has lost to Bumgarner in San Francisco, and now he's lost to Tillman here. And this is the problem. The Red Sox got him to win these games, not lose them by 1 run.
Well, I was thinking the same thing, and I said, when the old guy that owns our team here is home filing his toenails and watching the Orioles, he has to be cackling to see Chris Tillman at 9. Sure that they spent $217 million on, who can't beat the Orioles so far. And, I would even say for Tuesday night's game, Tillman and Price, that looked to me like a game 1 kind of playoff matchup. The Orioles would love to get 120 pitches out of Tillman in October. As the Eagles song says, they took it to the limit with him.
They did, and Showalter managed this game like it was a playoff game, which is good. I believe that, wins in April, May, June are the same as wins in September, and if you go into October, a regular season, the same thing. So, important games. This is a 2-game swing in the standings that may show up in September. Who knows how the season series will finish? But the Orioles seem to be able at this point to win the games they have to win. The Red Sox, creamed them the first 2 games down there. They came back and tied the series. And so right now, it should be disconcerting for the Red Sox. The Orioles seem to be able to come up with the win when they have to win. They come up with a play when they have to come up with a play. Like on Tuesday night, Shoop's home run in the first pitch after the Red Sox score. That's a turning point in the game. It's the kind of a run that Price should not give up.
Well, certainly for the effort of Tillman, and we didn't know if we had an ace, and the Red Sox didn't have an ace, which is why they went out and spent all the money in the offseason. But it's been the bats of the Red Sox. It's been the story, right? I mean, and on a night when they are silenced by Tillman, and it really was a pitcher's duel, these are 2 teams that are going to hit the ball more than they don't hit the ball. And specifically on the Red Sox side, just how many base runners they have on. They had their chances to get to Tillman early in the game, didn't. And in the end, they could have used 1 or 2 of those runs.
Teamed right now offensively by Christian Vazquez at the bottom of the order. I keep the box score has this obscure stat: runners left in scoring position with 2 out, and that's a big stat to me because that means you got to get a hit to get the guy in. Sacrifice flies and fielder's choices don't do it. And in like 125 at bats, Vazquez has already stranded 25 runners. That's an amazing ratio. And he's just killing them. Last night he killed them to ending the 2nd inning with the bases loaded, didn't get a hit. And they've had trouble down at the bottom of the order with production ever since they moved Jackie Bradley out of the number 9 spot.
Well, everybody can't be hitting 310 in the order, right?
when you have pitching like the Red Sox, everybody has to be hitting 310. That's the problem.
We are chatting with Bill Ballou. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at BillBallouTG. He's covered the Red Sox for 30 years now at the Telegram and Gazette of Worcester and merging with the Providence Journal as well up in those parts of New England. I almost made it up there this weekend to see Messe play at Foxborough. I've vowed that I'm going to see him kick a soccer ball in this continent while he's here. But meanwhile, the Red Sox, for where they are in the offseason and the amount of money they've spent the last 2 years, and Dombrowski, this is normal for the Red Sox to be playing first-place games in June. This is very abnormal for the Orioles, and over the last couple of years, this has become an exciting part of the summer to actually have a summer after a decade and a half of not having that. This is an unusual matchup, though. Big-time Orioles-Red Sox games in June. Bill, you've been following a long time. There haven't been a lot of these.
No, there were almost none from, was it 97, the Orioles won the AL East, and then after that there was this huge drought when the Red Sox were by far the dominant team. Things have reversed the last 5 years, except for 2013 when the Red Sox had that miraculous season in which they won the World Series. The Orioles have been a better team, and it's become a good matchup in similar style teams with a lot of power. I mean, that was Dan Duquette's outlook when he was the Red Sox general manager, was power, power, power. He's transferred that to Baltimore, and especially in that ballpark, it works very, very well. The Orioles the Camden Yards Orioles can't win just on pitching alone. They've got to be able to hit because it's a hitter's ballpark. And Duquette has built a very good roster for that.
Well, I've made the argument this week that David Price wouldn't have signed to pitch in Baltimore, that there's a reason beyond the goof that owns the baseball team here and the way the team's been run and the way he's treated free agent pitchers and the medical community and all of that swirls around it. I just don't think pitchers would want to sign with the Orioles and pitch in Camden Yards for lots of reasons. And then I don't think the team would be willing to spend $217 million on any pitcher, even if it was Jake Arrieta coming back.
Well, it's interesting. You talk about spending money, and if you don't spend the money, that's a sign, perhaps, that you don't care. But that hasn't been the case with signing free agent pitching the last few years. Teams that sign free agent pitchers, older free agent pitchers to long-term contracts, tend to wind up disappointed in the performance. Now, with the Red Sox, money is irrelevant. It doesn't. It's like the federal government. They can print as much money as they want, and it's not going to affect the bottom line. In a market like Baltimore, that's different. And so I think the Orioles are a little more careful with their money. They maybe do their homework a little bit better. Because if you look at the last years, the Red Sox free agent signings have not worked out that well, the big money signings anyway.
Well, and it's a tough place to come in from the outside. I thought about that with Price, toeing the rubber on Tuesday night, saying, well, it really kind of wasn't like this in Tampa where you've got 12,000 people there, half of them are rooting for the other team. There's not that kind of pressure that you even just feel when you pull up the Yawkey Way and know there's another full house and know the first place is on the line and know that the fans have an expectation of 95 wins or better. 500's not going to get it done. For you with this team this year and the coming of age of these young players, Bill, Betts, Bogarts, Bradley, I don't know what you've written or what you've talked about or even up in the press box or even on radio shows like this, but over the last couple of years, I'm sure there's been a lot of conjecture on whether these guys are going to make it. You mentioned Scope's home run on Tuesday night and Machado coming through for the Orioles. Those guys have never really teetered. The Red Sox have had a lot of guys that have teetered. I mean, Hal Buchholz has been teetering ever since he came in, right? It always feels like he's 2 bad starts away from going to Pawtucket or going to the bullpen.
Well, Buchholz is a human seesaw, and he always has been. And why? I mean, I'm not really thrilled with some of the moves that Dombrowski's made since he was general manager. They had the option on Buchholz. They didn't have to bring him back this year. Why they brought him back, I have no idea. They decided to bring him back, but they let Rich Hill go to Oakland. Now, Hill has a groin injury now, and maybe that will turn into something more, but he's given the A's an awful lot more in the first half of the season than Buchholz has given the Red Sox. And, the Wade Miley, Elias, and Carson Smith trade has not worked out yet. Smith is done for at least a year with Tommy John surgery. Elias has spent almost the entire year in Pawtucket. He's going to be coming up to make Friday start. And Wade Miley's been a very he's pitched every single start, 13 starts on schedule for the Mariners. So his moves haven't been that great. Right now, the Red Sox are excelling. They're game out of first place, mainly on using players that they developed in the farm system, particularly the guys you mentioned, the young stars like Bradley, Bogarts, and Betts.
I think one of the reasons we didn't like the Yankees in the offseason 2 off seasons ago was the age of A-Rod and Sabathia falling apart and Teixeira falling apart. Now, that's happened more this year than last year. I would have said many years ago, Ortiz, given his body type, given what he did and what he did well, that he could not be around in 2016 flirting with Triple Crown, crazy numbers, hit another double on Tuesday night. It's astonishing what he's been able to do, but not just the home runs and the RBIs and the bad feet, the doubles. It's thrown out at second base 2 weeks ago at a sundial trying to get him to second base. Make it to second base.
He reminds the Red Sox first DH, the very first day DH they ever had when the rule came in 1970, was Orlando Cepeda. And Cepeda was, at the time, the perfect DH because, his legs were completely shot. He ran even worse than Ortiz does now. and he was a terrific DH that first year. Once again, a lot of doubles. Right-handed hitter playing at Fenway Park, a lot of doubles, a few home runs. And Ortiz is somewhat above the level of what Cepeda was at. I wonder what a guy like Cepeda would have done if there'd been DH for most of his career instead of at the end of his career, because his legs may have held up better. And that's been the key with Ortiz. He's been a DH. What's unusual, and it's interesting, he has talked through the years about how much the shift has cost him in terms of batting average points. But they shift as much now as they ever did, and he's hitting, close to 340. He's been flirting with 340 all year long. So the shift hasn't made any difference this year. He's just hitting the ball so hard they can't catch it.
Well, I mean, the bat speed's still there, right? And that was very, very apparent on the double that, I mean, his bat and the way the ball leaves the bat and the speed and velocity which that happens, he looks far from washed up. And, I know he's trying to make it through these last 100 games and get another ring in Boston, but I would think in August and September people are going to say, why wouldn't you come back and do this again next year?
Well, a couple of reasons. I mean, it depends on what he looks at as retirement. I mean, I think he should retire. I think one of the reasons that he's hitting so well this year is that his mind is clean. He's made a decision. He has no outside distractions. Doesn't have to answer questions about if you're going to retire this year or not. There's a lot to be said for making a decision and moving ahead, and I think it's really sort of had a cleansing effect on his mind, his body, his spirit. And if he comes back next year, I think there's going to be that, well, now, will he make it another year? Will he go another year? Secondly, now he's had all these goodbye parties. What's he going to have to give the gifts back? I really think very few players go out on top. Most players hang on too long, and you're glad to see them retire. Ortiz has a chance to be one of those very unique greats who you say, geez, I wish he hadn't gone so soon, instead of, I wish he had gone sooner. Not many players can say that.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, a lot of times you have to rip the jersey off their back, especially when there's $15, $20 million at stake to come back and play another year. He certainly has made enough money. And for everything I've heard, and you're around the team more than anybody, he spends a ton of time in the training room that sort of goes unnoticed. You see these numbers, and, obviously every time he hits a home run, somebody in Baltimore or New York is screaming steroids at him, right? I mean, that's the nature of 2016 and 40-year-old power. And who knows about the clear and the cream? I haven't figured all that out, but I know this can't be an easy thing to do, to sit around all night and wait to come in and have 4, 5, 6 pitches to do what you do and do it at that level. It's almost unprecedented.
It is. I'm old enough, and I'm not sure if this is a fortunate or an unfortunate thing, but I'm old enough to remember Ted Williams' last couple of years. And Ted Williams was like this as well. In 1959, he had a bad neck, and he had a terrible season. 254, the worst season of his career, and he said, I don't want to retire like this. So he came back in 1960, even older, and he had a tremendous season. Bat speed completely undiminished, and he was one of those guys who went on top. And he was a position player back then. And I think that Ortiz, in terms of batting ability, hand-eye coordination, eyesight, reflexes, all the things that go into making a great hitter, plus the experience of knowing what you can do with a certain pitch and the patience to wait for that pitch, has made him into the hitter he is today. And he's like a Williams. He's an outlier. Now, could he be effective 2 or 3 years? A season like this, you don't go downhill overnight for the most part. I mean, especially if you're not going to be injury prone. And if you're not in the field, he'll slow down, but he won't be injury prone. Can he keep it up? Sure, he can keep it up. Maybe at a diminished level, but still a very effective level. I just don't think, given that he's announced his retirement and he wants to go out on top, I don't think that's going to happen. If I'm the Red Sox, I worry about next year because there's no one around as a DH that can fill his shoes.
Bill Ballou joining us here. He's covered the Red Sox for 3 decades at the Telegram and Gazette of Worcester. So, the Orlando Cepeda references, I have a great appreciation for that era because my cousin was on the 73 Red Sox with Cepeda and Petrocelli and Tiant and all, Diego Segui and all those guys. And through the history of baseball, when you think about the Red Sox in the 70s and you talk about Dewey Evans, you talk about Rice and Lynn and Hobson in that era, this era of Red Sox, and when you look at the Yankees and what they could do with Posada and Williams and how long that went on, and as you pointed out, the Red Sox having the money, Betts, Bogarts, Bradley Jr., this sort of threesome that has blossomed all at this time, and I know Bogarts was more last year. In your mind, and in my mind, Fred Lynn would have been the best player of that era, as it turned out Rice was, right? And Fisk went to the Hall of Fame as well, and Lynn didn't sniff the Hall of Fame, but I still think at heart, Lynn, if he wasn't crashing into walls, I'm always fascinated when it's over with, out of Betts, Bogarts, and Bradley, as we see all of them now, who's going to wind up being a Red Sox Sox 6 years, 8 years from now, and have made $150, $200 million and maybe get another ring on their finger, and who's going to dissipate? I've had different reporters, beat reporters on all year back at spring training down at JetBlue Park saying that Betts was the best player, and, we're halfway through the season, and Bogarts and Bradley, and certainly what Bradley did, that 430-foot home run on Tuesday night, they were all making a hell of a case here that Red Sox fans could look at this as, hey, man, over the next 5 or 6 years, I know Ortiz will be gone, but we're going to be okay around here. One of the reasons Price signed there, I guess, right?
Well, I mean, is being okay good enough? You talk about the great 70s teams, the Red Sox, and that they probably the 1940 Sox with Dom DiMaggio, Pesky, Williams, Bobby Doerr. A lot of those guys lost a lot of time to World War II. That group of players and the 70s group of players are probably the most talented core the Red Sox have had, in the lively ball era. And yet, the 70s team went to the World Series once. They won one pennant, as good as they were. So, I mean, I think that the Red Sox are going to be an interesting team to watch. They're going to be a competitive team to watch. And with the playoffs being what they are, expanded playoffs, they will make the playoffs. But I'm not so sure that having these three guys as a core are going to be enough to make them a championship team. I still think that they need more.
All right, well, Bill Ballou joining us here. Last thoughts for you. Where are the Orioles in your mind with the back end of this rotation? Certainly the Red Sox this week seeing the good side of this in Tillman and maybe Gausman, but it goes downhill quickly after that, as you'll see with Tyler Wilson and into the weekend with Mike Wright, now Gallardo coming back. We have all questioned whether the Orioles have enough pitching. I don't think the Orioles are in any position to improve their pitching. Everyone I've talked to in Boston, they'll just spend some money, they'll spend some of their minor league resources, and they'll pull the trigger and at least get better before August 1st.
Well, I mean, you hope so, you assume so. That's what they're going to try to do, but that's no guarantee. I mean, they picked up Jake Peavy, a while back. He really didn't make it much better. I go back to '86. They picked up Tom Seaver in the middle of the season. He went 5-7. They would have been better off without him. So, the problem with the expanded playoffs is that you used to have a few teams who were looking and a lot of teams who were selling, and now you're probably 50-50. Half the teams, in July are still in contention for the wild card spot, maybe even more than half the teams. And so there's just not as much available as there used to be. So I'm not sure the Red Sox can make the kind of deal. But the same token, not hardly anybody can make that kind of deal now. The Blue Jays did it last year, but not everyone can do it. There's a very, very small market of available pitchers out there who are going to be to be had, so to speak, come July, I think.
Well, and then it's pricey to begin with when you consider that the Orioles are going to have to see Rodriguez on Thursday night based on a 60-day rental of Andrew Miller 2 years ago. The Orioles could use Rodriguez, and I know he's stumbled and the jury's still out on him, but they'd rather have him in an orange cap than a blue cap with a B on it on Thursday night.
They would. Sports in general, it seems like baseball in particular, very, very strange businesses. If you ran a non-sports business, your model would include future planning in which you would preserve resources. Baseball, as you mentioned, the Andrew Miller deal is a perfect example. Baseball doesn't seem to want to preserve its resources. Everything is for this year, even though the game has been played professionally since 1871. There is going to be a next year. And I would like to see the Red Sox, from the standpoint of being successful, preserve the resources. And so when it comes time to get pitching, the question really isn't, can they spend the money? They can. But what sort of prospects, what sort of resources do they want to expend to get that? The Orioles chose to spend Rodriguez to get Miller. I'm not so sure that they would not be better off today had they not done that. And I think you have to look not just at this year, but years down the road and project what you can do. So when it comes time to make deals in July, I think the Red Sox have to try to preserve their resources.
So you're still sore about them dealing away Jeff Bagwell?
It's funny. No one knew Bagwell would hit as many home runs as they did. Obviously, I mean, for one thing, he played in New Britain, which New Britain, the fences in New Britain, 410 feet down the lines. It was the biggest ballpark in America. It was like something from 1905, and nobody had home runs there. And they had Cooper ahead of him in the depth chart. But even in 1990, when they made that deal, they didn't need Larry Anderson. Larry Anderson was useless for them. He did nothing for them. And that's what happens when you spend those resources like that. I mean, it can come back to haunt you.
Hey, it was great chatting with you. What a wealth of, I love anybody that can weave Orlando Cepeda into the conversation in the beginning. Is a guy I need to have on the program more, Bill, so I'm going to be bugging you more often. Appreciate the time. It was a great conversation. We'll send everybody out to telegram.com to watch you, as well as at Bill Ballou TG out on Twitter. Thanks for coming on, pal.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bill Ballou up in Worcester, Mass, with a wonderful sunset picture of Fenway Park over the corner. My wife and I were talking about getting to Fenway Park again this summer. We are a year removed now from our 30-30 tour and the Give a Spit tour last year. I've been sharing a bunch of those pictures out on Facebook. We have been broadcasting on our Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNS TV channel. You can check us out there. And, of course, in the bio, Toyota Audio Vault, 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. It comes to you wherever you are. Download it and listen when you want, where you want, how you want on your mobile device, and now watch whenever you want as well. Our morning newspaper reaches you at 7 a.m. each and every morning to your email inbox. That's free of charge and powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. And last but never least, breaking news happens first on the WNST tech service, comes to your mobile device instantaneously. Ravens and Orioles breaking news on Tuesday with the loss of the bullpen in the Orioles and trying to figure that thing out as we're still trying to figure out how to pronounce Despagnier's first name. Luke does a nice job of that, as well as the Brashad Perryman news. I almost said Brett Perryman, channeling his father, who I hope is doing better as well. So any breaking news happens first there. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. It is the WNST Tech Service. I'm Nestor. You can find me, Nasty, at WNST.net. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Snapchat, anywhere out on the web we are now in living color and in high definition. I've got to get some glare-free glasses here soon, my reading glasses. Aging me, what can I say? We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.